Hello and welcome to the Latah Valley Fiber Co. podcast. My name is Tiffany. This is a special episode about everything I knit in 2024. So let's get going. You can find me on Instagram at Latah Valley Fiber Co. You can check out my shop, latahvalleyfiberco.etsy.com. And if you'd like to direct message me, lvfiberco@gmail.com. Okay, so I have a list here of everything that I knit in 2024, and this is going to be a brief showing of my items because I don't have a lot of them, so I have a few pictures. I also have some that don't have pictures, so I will list links down below to all the patterns that I used as well as the yarn if you want to check that out in the description box. Okay. So the first thing I started was a sweater, currently the one that I'm wearing. I knit 2 sweaters in 2024. I knit 1 cardigan. I knit 1 blanket. I knit 30 pairs of socks. That's right, 30 pairs of socks. I knit 2 hot water bottle covers, 5 hats, 1 pair of mittens, 6 dishcloths, and 6 scarves. I also did a bit of spinning, so I have 3 of those items to show you. And I also did some sewing on some project bags for myself and for gifts. Those, there are a few that I put in my shop, a few meaning about 40 of them. I also have 1 incomplete item. So let's start off with this sweater. This is the AGNES sweater by Camilla. She calls it a pullover. That AGNES pullover by Camilla. I started this on 12/31 and I finished it on March 8th. I will have details listed below on where you can find the pattern out. I really enjoyed this pattern. I used the black was Malabrigo Arroyo in the black, and then I hand spun the green and the orange, and then the gray tweed I dyed myself into this silver color, and this is wool and alpaca. I followed the pattern. I had a little bit of hiccuping along the way because I didn't do gauge, which we all know I rarely do. Okay, the second sweater that I did is the AWEN by Meghan Babin. I knit this in Barocco Vintage in the smoke colorway for my son. I did the second size, 39.5 inches, and I started on 10/30 and I finished on 12/18. My son loves it. And, oops, here we go. I will also post pictures of him wearing it here. This is now blocked. I didn't have it blocked in the pictures that I'm showing you. So the sleeves are a little short. They are now long enough, as well as the waist. I loved this pattern. I loved it so much that as soon as I was done, I wanted to knit one for my husband. He's not into that because he runs warm anyway. Oh, it's funny. But maybe I'll make one for somebody else. Okay, the next item is the cardigan. And this is the GINNY cardigan by Andrea Mowry. I knit this out of my own hand-dyed yarn in the colorway Pitch, I believe. And I dyed it specifically for this project. I knit this a little oversized because I wanted extra to kind of come and wrap around me a little bit, or at least crisscross in the front. This pattern also comes with a belt, and I didn't knit the belt because I'm short torsoed, and I felt like the belt would be right up under my breasts, and that would not look good. Okay, so I knit this to pattern. I had a little bit of trouble getting the right amount of stitches for the shawl collar, but I just went with it and it worked out fine. What else? I do wear this a lot, especially over dresses and jeans. It's a really fun pattern. I like the detailing on it as well. All right, so that's it for garments. Now I did knit 30 pairs of socks, and I'll put some pictures in here. I don't have a lot of them. Part of them were gifts for people for Christmas, and others were for my husband for his Advent. This year I knit 24 pairs of socks for him to open starting December 1st and going through the 24th. And he loved that whole thing. He enjoyed opening a brand new pair of socks every morning. He loves hand knit wool socks. So that was fun to do for him. A lot of the patterns I knit were from Summer Lee Designs, either out of her book or her Colorwork Cuff Club. So those were a lot of fun to do. I enjoyed doing patterns and the color work. It was very enjoyable, so I highly recommend it. The next is I knit 2 hot water bottle covers, and those I don't have to show. They are getting well used and they look a little rough. The wool has kind of not felted, but it has a bit of pilling. It's pilling a little bit. So, but they get a lot of use. I use mine every night. Hudson uses his off and on. Okay, the next project is a pair of mittens. Now I knit these for Hudson, and I knit them out of wool and alpaca, which was in my temperature blanket. And I knit the pattern, The World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits. I, however, used the wrong yarn. I used City Tweed by Knit Picks, as well as the Woodland Tweed. I did these on 10/15 and I cast off on 10/20. They're really easy to knit. However, I used the wrong yarn. So the minute they got wet, they just stretched out into this big, they didn't even look like mittens. They were so stretched out. So they lasted for a little while, but as soon as he got them wet, they're toast. So I would not recommend knitting mittens with alpaca. Okay, the next thing that I knit was dishcloths all year long. I had lots and lots of dishcloths. The pattern I used was Grandma's Dishcloth by PJ Allen. I knit the fabric, or the yarn that I used was Sugar and Cream in various colorways. I have one picture. I did these throughout the year. I had several that were for somebody. I knit extra to give as gifts, or if anybody else wanted dishcloths. So that's a fun pattern. That's the only one I really ever use these days. Okay, the next is scarves. Now I mainly knit the Sophie scarf. However, I did knit one extra. It was called the Larch. So let's talk about that one first, and then we'll talk about the Sophie scarf, which is a very popular pattern. Okay, the Larch I cast on. It's by Tinks and Frogs, and it's a free pattern. I started this on May 7th, and I finished it on June 4th. I used my own hand-dyed yarn, Latah Valley Fiber Co. in the lavender colorway. It was a fingering. Now, this pattern was challenging to read. There were a few things missing or assumed. So I did the best that I could. There were a few mistakes in there, but overall it turned out really nice. And I ended up gifting this to a friend. So she loves it. And it's nice and warm and cozy. It was a single ply fingering, so really soft and warm. And yeah, a fun pattern to do. I just had issues with reading it. Okay, so the Sophie scarf. This is a pattern by Petite Knit, and it's very popular. In fact, she has the Sophie scarf, the Sophie shawl, and there might be one other thing. I'm not quite sure. I use this varying different yarns for each of these. 2 of them were knit out of Knitty McPurley's Christmas Advent from 2023, which I had gotten for that year. And I made mainly the larger scarf, but there were a couple that were of the smaller variety. So I'll post pictures here and you can kind of look at them. They don't take very long to knit. In fact, they're quite easy to do, and would be fun to use different, like maybe a fingering with mohair. That would be really soft, and or Surrey alpaca. Yeah. So I do have intentions to knit several more petite knit patterns for the coming year, 2025. And I know that she's a very gifted designer. So I enjoyed knitting the scarf enough to want to knit maybe a vest from her. There's a couple different ones that I'm kind of mulling over. So, okay, let's talk about hats. I knit several hats. One of them I've already mentioned. I knit out of a hand spun that I had done at the beginning of the year. That hat went to my nephew for his birthday. I knit a couple more hats for my nieces. The pattern that I used for these hats is called the Crystal Lattice Beanie by Alex of Weaving Wonder. And I used my own hand-dyed bulky yarn for this in the sweeter colorway. And I made 3 of these hats for my nieces. I also knit a ribbed hat, no pattern. I just did a 1x1 rib all the way from the brim to the decreases and the crown of the hat. That one I knit for my nephew as well. Okay, I think that's it for hats. Is that 5? That's 5. Okay. Okay, that's it for the knitting, except for the blanket. Should I show you the blanket? That's kind of my big project for the year, so I'm going to wait on that. Okay, the roving, I had several projects. The big one was I worked up from fleece to yarn. My son's teacher for the year has 2 sheep, and one of them is a Suffolk, so she gave me the fleece to work up for her. And I was able to, it was his first shearing. There were a lot of short bits, and there was a lot of debris and things like that. So I picked the fleece, I washed the fleece, I carded the fleece, I picked some more, and then I spun it. So the project took a long time because it was a lot of work and a lot of processing. And then I was also busy with knitting and other things. So, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, and she loved it at the end when I gave it to her. So I've also done several other spinning projects. I spun an Advent this year for Christmas. So every day I opened up a little nest of fiber and I spun it for the day. And then when my bobbins were full, I 2-plied them together into a barber pulled yarn. It was a fun project. In fact, I liked it so much, I'm going to do it next year. That fleece was 100% merino. So very nice to spin. There was a little bit of debris in there, but not much. And then I also did 2 different tweeds at the beginning of the year in January. One was a blue-gray and the other one was a yellow and orange. So I'll post that up here as well. Those were fun to do. I have yet to do, oh no, I knit a hat. I knit a hat for my nephew with the hand spun, the blue and gray. So that was fun. He's enjoying that hat. So, that's it for the roving. I also sewed several knitting bags, several for myself, several for friends, one for John, And I also did quite a few for my business. I put them in my shop. You can check them out if you're interested. But I'm not going to list them all here. I'll show you a couple pictures. The pattern is by Erica Arndt, and it's called the Drawstring Squishy Bag Volume 2. I just used cotton that I bought from Joann's, and they're really easy to do. They take about an hour total to sew up. Each bag took about an hour. So they're really easy, lots of fun, and you get to switch out your project bags at leisure. Okay, so let's talk about the incomplete item. I started this vest with my own spun yarn, and I got really frustrated with it. Okay, this pattern was the See My Vest by Emily Boldwan, and nothing against the pattern. I think the pattern was well written and everything. The issue that I had with this project, which is why it's unfinished, is because of the yarn. I had spun this yarn. It was ropey. I had dyed it with natural dye, indigo, and it bled. So I over dyed it with acid dyes in a navy, hoping that would solve the problem. It did not. So I threw up my hands and decided I'll knit the vest anyway. So I started knitting the vest, and with it being ropey and my hands turning blue every time I would knit it, I just didn't love it. Also, it was too dense of a fabric. So I ended up just putting it down. I was not in love with doing it. I wanted a vest, but the yarn was so bad that I was never going to it. In fact, I finally just put it away. Didn't want to look at it again until the end of the year. And then here I am, the end of the year, and I don't have the vest. I've never looked at it again. So my thought with that is I'm going to pull it out and just use it as filler in other projects. I've tried two different things with this yarn, and it's uncomfortable to knit with. It's hard on my hands, plus they turn blue every time I knit with it. So I'm gonna pull it out and do something else with the yarn, something that I don't have to wear. Okay, that's it for the incomplete items. Let's talk about my blanket. This is the big project that I did all year long, and it's one that I planned to do with my husband and a friend. And so we started this, well, I started mine on January 17th. It's a temperature blanket that I did for the year 2013. That was the year John and I got married and we adopted Hudson. So this pattern is by Handy Little Me, and the yarn that I used was Woodland Tweed by Knit Picks in the worsted Aran weight option. I used needle size 4.5 millimeter, and I cast on 240 stitches. I knit on this every day, mostly. I did get behind a few times, far enough behind that I almost had a whole month to catch up on. That happened twice, I believe. So I did, however, finish it early. And yeah, here's a video of my grand reveal. Now, this project was very long term. I initially started off really well, was really excited about knitting on it every day, but that quickly became a drag, especially around summertime. And then I got going on it again, and then I lost steam in the fall again. So it's probably a one and done blanket. I've done one. I don't want to do another one. So, but it was really fun. Various ups and downs as one has with a long-term project. So, yeah, I don't have another one for this coming year. I'm just going to knit what inspires me. All right, that's all I have for you on this special episode. I will see you again next week for a regular podcast. And until then, happy knitting.